Imagine you've just been hired as the lead architect to build like a modern, high-tech, smart city skyscraper.
Okay, sounds like a good gig.
Right. But you get to the construction site on day one, you roll out the blueprints on the hood of your truck, and you realize, wait, you've been handed instructions for building a medieval castle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Moat, drawbridge, massive stone wall. I mean, the works.
And you'd just be standing there trying to figure out how to run fiber optic cables through arrow slits.
Exactly.
The materials you have might be top of the line, and your construction crew might be incredibly skilled, but the blueprint itself is just, well, it's fundamentally mismatched to the environment you're building in.
The geometry you've been handed is designed to solve a problem from 600 years ago. And it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're building the wrong shape.
Yeah, it's an impossible task.
And welcome, by the way, to a deep dive custom tailored just for you. Today, we're looking at some incredibly thought-provoking source material, the introduction and first chapter of a manuscript titled From Pyramids to Diamonds.
It's a text that really forces us to step back and examine the invisible scaffolding holding up our world.
Yeah, because we spend so much time arguing about who is running our institutions.
Right, constantly.
But we rarely question the underlying shape of those institutions.
And that's the core of it.
So our mission today is to uncover why so many of the modern structures you interact with daily, governments, massive corporations, even the education systems you or your kids navigate, why they feel like they are constantly straining or just outright failing.
Yeah, falling apart.
We are going to explore the author's radical premise, which is that the problem isn't just bad leadership or bad policies or, a lack of funding. It's the fundamental geometry of how we organize society. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, to understand the solution the author proposes, which they call the diamond perspective, we first have to, diagnose the shape of our current problem.
Right.
The author points out that we are currently living in the age of decentralization. We aren't just facing standard political instability or, a temporary tech disruption. It's bigger than that.
Much bigger. We are living through a massive historical shift in social organization itself.
Across the world, centralized systems are showing incredible strain. And that strain is deeply structural. I mean, the manuscript argues that hierarchical institutions, whether that's a federal bureaucracy or just a traditional corporate ladder, they were designed specifically for the agricultural and industrial ages.
Yes. And those eras were defined by a profound need for strict command and control. You needed a few educated or powerful people at the top directing the manual labor of the many at the bottom.
Makes sense for the time.
Right, because in an agricultural society, change happens very slowly. The weather changes by the season. Crops grow at a predictable rate.
Yeah, you aren't exactly rushing.
Exactly. And even the industrial age, building a factory or rolling out a new car model took years. So in those environments, a hierarchical pyramid actually works fairly well.
Right. The few people at the apex of the pyramid, they have the time to gather information, process it, make a decision, and then just, pass orders down the chain of command. But the information age completely shatters that timeline.
Totally shatters it. We are living in a world shaped by staggering complexity, light-speed communication, distributed intelligence, and continuous unpredictable change.
And the old pyramid structure simply cannot process information fast enough to survive in this environment.
It just can't.
Think about a modern multinational corporation trying to navigate a sudden supply chain crisis.
Or like a viral PR disaster on social media.
Yes, exactly. If the customer service rep on the ground spots the flaw, they have to tell their manager, who drafts a memo for the regional director, who flags it for the VP, who brings it to the executive board 3 weeks later.
And by then the company's on fire.
Exactly. Information degrades at every single step. The pyramid structure guarantees a delayed, diluted reaction.
It reminds me of trying to run a lightning-fast, modern smartphone operating system on a bulky, beige 1990s desktop computer.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. The old hardware, that rigid pyramid structure, simply cannot handle the sheer complexity and speed of modern software. It just crashes.
Yep.
And the default reaction to that crash is usually to blame the CEO or the politicians or the department heads. Which brings up a question. If the pyramid is so outdated, why is it still the default structure for almost every corporation and government on Earth?
Well, what's fascinating here is a historical pattern of failure, the text points out. When these massive systems fail, Societies almost never rethink the concept of governance itself.
Never.
Instead, they just replace the person sitting at the top of the pyramid.
That part really struck me. I mean, the manuscript lists it out, and when you view history through this lens, it's glaring. Like a monarch is overthrown and they become an emperor.
Right.
A king is ousted and replaced by a president. An empire falls and becomes a party state. Colonial rule ends and becomes a national government.
It's different faces, different flags, and different titles, but it is the exact same extractive geometry.
Extractive geometry, yeah.
And when we say extractive geometry, we mean a structure where the broad base of people at the bottom does the vast majority of the work, and the resources, profits, or power are extracted and funneled upward to a highly concentrated point at the top.
Right, the power just sits at an isolated peak.
Exactly. But because the modern world is changing, driven by digital networks, local innovation, and everyday people having massive civic agency, that rigid logic is just collapsing under its own weight.
So if we know we need a skyscraper, why do we keep pouring the foundation for a castle?
That requires us to look past the physical buildings and the organizational charts. We have to look at the invisible psychological blueprints we're holding in our hands.
Right.
The reason we keep defaulting to the pyramid structure is deeply tied to how we think.
The text argues that the crises we face today might look political, economic, or environmental on the surface, but beneath those symptoms is a deeper affliction, which is our dominant mental lens.
Architecture always follows imagination. Before we can physically build an institution, we have to conceptualize it in our minds.
We have to dream it first.
Exactly. And right now, our dominant mode of thinking is fundamentally broken for the era we live in. The author lists 5 specific characteristics of our current thinking. They say it is linear, random, separate, competitive, and conflict-driven.
Let's slow down and actually break those down, because this fragmented lens is what isolates problems that are actually deeply interconnected.
Yes, it treats society as a bucket of disconnected parts rather than a living, breathing system.
Let's start with separate and linear thinking.
Well, when thinking is linear, governance becomes purely reactive. You view the world as a straight line from A to B. You wait for a crisis to happen at point A, and then you deploy a solution at point B.
Right, there's no anticipation.
None. And when thinking is separate, institutions become heavily siloed. The environmental department doesn't talk to the economic department, even though their realities are totally intertwined in the real world.
It's like having a world-class hospital where the cardiac surgeon operates flawlessly, but absolutely refuses to speak to the pharmacist about what medications the patient is already taking.
Oh, that's spot on.
Right. The surgeon is only looking at the heart. The pharmacist is only looking at the chart. Both are brilliant individually, but because their thinking is completely separate, the patient suffers a massive adverse reaction.
Yeah, you're treating separated parts instead of the whole system.
Exactly.
And that's a perfect analogy for how modern bureaucracies function, which leads directly into the next traits the author identifies, which are competitive and conflict-driven thinking.
Okay, I do want to push back on this part of the manuscript, though.
Go for it.
The text frames competitive and conflict-driven thinking as a root condition of systemic failure. But wait, isn't competition supposed to be the ultimate driver of innovation? I mean, why is the text framing competitive and conflict-driven thinking as a root condition of systemic failure?
It's a very common reaction to the text, but the author isn't suggesting that competition has absolutely zero value in human affairs, or that we should abolish free markets.
Okay, that makes sense.
The synthesis here is about dosage and dominance. When competition becomes the dominant lens through which we view all of society, when we apply it to healthcare, education, internal corporate teams, and community-building conflict becomes entirely normalized.
So it's about viewing everything as a zero-sum game. Like, if my department wins, your department has to lose.
Yes, and when that happens, systems begin to degrade from the inside out. You see internal departments at the exact same company sabotaging each other to secure a larger piece of the annual budget.
Right, sales fights marketing.
Exactly. The extraction mindset takes over. The author emphasizes that this is not merely a political issue. It's not a debate about left-wing versus right-wing policies. It is a civilizational design problem.
Wow.
If our old way of thinking helped produce our present instability, then true adaptation requires an entirely new mental model.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if this fragmented, linear, competitive lens is the disease, what is the actual cure?
Right. Diagnosing the problem is one thing.
But how do we build a different shape? This is where the author introduces the core concept of the book, which is the diamond perspective.
Yes. The information age requires governance systems that are built for feedback, adaptation, coordination, and emergence.
And that requires a cognitive shift that directly answers the 5 broken traits we just discussed.
Exactly. The manuscript maps out this civilizational transition across 5 specific shifts in logic.
Okay, what are they?
We need to move from linear thinking to cyclical thinking, from separate to connected, from random to planned, from competition to cooperation, and finally, from conflict to mutual aid.
Let's look at that shift from linear to cyclical because it profoundly changes how power operates. I mean, a pyramid is strictly linear, right? Orders go down the chain and compliance goes up.
Right. But a cycle, however, implies continuous feedback. It means the people at the bottom are actively informing the decisions of the whole.
Let's visualize this diamond geometry for you listening right now. Picture a traditional pyramid. It has that wide, heavy base tapering up to a single, tiny, isolated point of power at the top.
We've all seen it.
Now picture a diamond. It doesn't just peak at one isolated point. From the bottom, it expands outward, connecting a broad, capable, robust middle before coming together again at the top.
It implies distributed capacity.
Exactly.
And that broad middle is the engine of the information age.
Let's ground this because abstract geometry can get a bit lofty.
Right.
What does a diamond structure actually look like in the real world compared to a pyramid?
Well, think about the difference between a traditional printed encyclopedia and Wikipedia.
Oh, that's good.
Right. The Encyclopedia Britannica was a classic pyramid. You had a tiny group of elite editors at the apex. They decided what knowledge was important, they delegated topics to writers below them, and the final product was handed down to the masses at the base.
And it was super linear, it was separate, and incredibly slow to adapt to new information.
Yes.
And Wikipedia is the diamond.
Exactly. In Wikipedia, the broad middle, the massive community of users, creates, edits, and checks itself through cyclical feedback loops. It's connected and cooperative.
If a major world event happens, Wikipedia updates in like 3 minutes.
Yeah. While the traditional encyclopedia took 3 years to print a new edition, the diamond adapts because it leverages the distributed intelligence of the entire network, rather than waiting for a bottleneck of editors at the top to process the change.
That makes so much sense. The mechanism of a diamond eliminates the vertical middlemen. In a pyramid, information degrades as it travels up and down. But in a diamond structure, like an agile software development pod, the customer service rep is in a lateral, continuous feedback loop directly with the product designer.
The broad middle can act instantly.
But I have to ask about one of the 5 shifts that seems to contradict this.
Which one?
The shift from random to planned. I mean, if we were praising Wikipedia and Agile Tods for their emergence and their ability to adapt on the fly, why does the author want us to move toward planned thinking? Doesn't planned imply rigid, top-down 5-year plans? That sounds like a pyramid again.
Ugh. It's a crucial distinction. In the old pyramid model, random meant governance was purely reactive. Waiting for random crises to pop up and playing whack-a-mole.
Okay.
When the author says we need to shift to planned, they don't mean Soviet-style rigid outcome planning. They mean intentionally designing the architecture of adaptation.
Like planning the structure of a garden rather than trying to micromanage every single leaf that grows?
That is a brilliant way to frame it. You plan the cyclical feedback loops, you plan the lateral communication channels, you intentionally design a system that is capable of catching random events and adapting to them.
Wow. Okay.
They are planning for emergence rather than just hoping it happens.
But how does changing a geometric metaphor in our heads actually change how a massive bureaucracy functions?
Well, this raises an important question regarding how we structure our own teams and communities.
Yeah.
The thought precedes the architecture. The diamond geometry naturally enables those feedback loops. In a diamond, information flows outward into that broad middle. It circulates, adapts, and coordinates. That is literally impossible in a top-down pyramid where the base is only designed to receive orders, not to share intelligence.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring this macro-civilizational theory directly down to your daily reality tomorrow morning.
Yeah, let's do it.
Why does this geometric shift matter to you right now as you're navigating your own life and career? Maybe you're prepping for a major meeting, leading a small team, or just trying to stay informed about where the world is heading.
Exactly.
How can you actually apply this diamond perspective when you are, let's be honest, probably still trapped working inside a traditional pyramid organization?
That is the reality most people are waking up to. But the text highlights that the world is rapidly becoming more decentralized and interconnected anyway, regardless of what your company's official org chart says.
Yeah, the tech is pushing it.
Right. Digital networks, local innovation systems, and rising civic agency are already forcing this change. The old hierarchical mental models were designed for stability. The present moment demands adaptation. And as the author states, adaptation begins in thought.
So even if your title puts you somewhere near the bottom of a massive corporate pyramid, your mental model doesn't have to be limited by that shape.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, by adopting cyclical connected thinking yourself, you can start anticipating changes rather than just reacting to them.
Right.
You can build cooperative lateral networks across different departments instead of competing with them for resources. You can proactively share intelligence with the pharmacist instead of just staying in your surgeon silo.
You're essentially creating diamonds of resilience within your own sphere of influence.
Exactly.
You might not have the authority to fire the CEO and flip the whole company structure upside down today, but you can absolutely change how your specific team processes feedback and coordinates intelligence.
You can stop hoarding information at the top of your own little managerial pyramid and start distributing it laterally to build a capable, adaptable middle.
Every time you choose connected thinking over separate thinking, or cyclical planning over random reaction, you are participating in that civilizational transition the author is talking about.
You are proving that the information age requires a different operating system.
Yeah, and you're running that new software locally on your own team. Let's recap the journey we've taken through these sources today. We started by exploring why the old hierarchical pyramids, those extractive systems designed for the slow command and control realities of the agricultural and industrial ages, why they're structurally failing in our modern information age, which is, defined by complexity and light-speed communication.
We then looked beneath the physical structures and org charts to uncover the psychological root cause, which is our dominant mental lens.
Right.
We saw how linear, separate, and competitive thinking acts like a virus, fragmenting reality, creating silos, and degrading our institutions from the inside out.
And finally, we explore the solution presented in the text, which is shifting to the cyclical, connected, and cooperative logic of the diamond perspective.
Yes.
We learned that civilizational transition isn't just about electing new leaders to sit on a throne at the top of the old pyramid.
It never is.
It's about rethinking the mental lens of governance entirely. It's about designing systems like Wikipedia or agile pods that empower a broad middle to utilize feedback, adapt instantly, and foster emergence. I want to thank you for taking this deep dive with us today and for taking the time to rethink the invisible structures shaping the world around you.
And to leave you with a final thought to mull over, drawing on a deeper mechanic of how these systems actually function. We've established that a diamond structure relies entirely on cyclical feedback loops and distributed intelligence. But what happens to the geometry if the information flowing through those loops is compromised?
Wait, so if you build the perfect diamond structure, totally decentralized and laterally connected, but the people inside it are feeding each other bad data to protect their egos or hide their mistakes.
The whole shape collapses anyway.
Right.
It raises a profound question about system mechanics versus human nature. Can a beautifully designed cyclical geometric structure actually force transparency? Or does a true diamond require a fundamental baseline of accurate data and human honesty before the structure can even function? Because without information fidelity, a feedback loop is just a very efficient cycle of lies.
That is a massive, incredibly vital question for you to explore on your own. Because at the end of the day, if you are looking at the blueprints for a beautiful modern skyscraper, but the people pouring the concrete are secretly watering it down, well, you might just end up wishing you had built that medieval castle after all.